You ever have that gut feeling? That little voice whispering something just isn't right, no matter how much you try to ignore it. I'm just a regular guy, married, thought I had a decent life. My wife Sarah, she's always been the outgoing one. So when she said she needed a weekend away with her girlfriends, some spa time to recharge, honestly, I was happy for her. Told her to have fun, relax. We even hugged goodbye, normal as anything but that feeling. It just wouldn't leave me alone. Call it intuition, call it paranoia after some weird vibes lately, but something felt off about this trip. Maybe it was how vague she was about where exactly they were staying, or how her phone seemed glued to her hand more than usual in the days before she left. I tried to shake it off, tell myself I was being insecure, maybe even controlling, but the silence after she left, it was deafening. No quick we arrived, text, nothing. Hours ticked by. That's when the doubt, the fear, it just took over. I remembered we shared locations on our phones, for safety, never thinking I'd actually use it like this. My hands were shaking as I opened the app, heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. The little dot blinked on the map, not at some fancy spa resort hours away, not even across town. It showed her location just 10 miles from our house. Right, smack in the middle of a strip with budget motels and fast food joints. Definitely not a girls' trip destination. My blood ran cold. Why would she lie? Who was she really with? Then, like a punch to the gut, it clicked. Her boss, Mark, he'd been acting strangely around me lately. Overly friendly one minute, avoiding eye contact the next, and he'd mentioned being out of town this weekend too. Coincidence? I didn't believe it. The app showed her car parked outside room 112 at the Sunset, and I drove there numb, my whole world crumbling. I parked down the block, staring at that door. What, or who, was she doing inside? My marriage hung by a thread, and I was about to find out if it snapped. I took a deep breath, got out of the car and walked towards that motel room door, knowing nothing would ever be the same. Key elements used. Hook starts immediately with relatable unease, that gut feeling, tone, suspenseful, personal raw emotion, doubt, fear, numbness. Characters. Introduces the narrator husband, Sarah wife, and Mark boss naturally. Keywords weaved in naturally. Trust issues, location tracking, marriage crisis, emotional betrayal, gut instinct, suspense, cliffhanger. That builds tension through the discovery process and ends just before the confrontation at the motel door. Human-centric and simple. Focuses on the husband's emotional journey and internal conflict. Uses conversational language, regular guy, blood ran cold, heart pounding, policy safe. Focuses on the emotional betrayal and discovery process. No explicit descriptions or harmful violent intent implied. The story stops before any direct confrontation. My feet felt like lead as I crossed the cracked asphalt parking lot. Every step towards room 112 echoed the little lies I'd brushed off over the past year. That sudden overtime when her car wasn't in the office lot. The way she'd angle her phone screen away when I walked into the room. The constant jokes about Mark, too constant. Maybe, oh, Mark's such a workaholic, she'd say. Or Mark's clueless about his wife's birthday. Can you believe it? It felt like she was trying too hard to paint him as harmless, even a bit pathetic. Now it just felt like misdirection. Old marriage hadn't been perfect, I'll admit. The easy connection we used to have, it had faded into routine. Date nights became Netflix on the couch. Deep talks turned into surface-level updates about work and chores. I blamed the stress, her demanding job, the bills piling up, the general exhaustion of daily life. I thought we were just in a slump, that phase couples go through. I figured we'd find our way back. I never imagined this. I never imagined betrayal hiding behind complaints about spreadsheets and office politics. I thought about Mark. He'd been to our house for a company barbecue, shook my hand, laughed at my jokes. He seemed normal, average. Was that an act, or did Sarah just see something in him that I never did? The secrecy, the location, a cheap motel just miles from home. It screamed something cheap and desperate. It wasn't about love, it felt like a transaction. That realization, more than anything, twisted like a knife. Was our whole life together just a lie she tolerated? I reached the worn door of room 112. The cheap curtains were drawn tight. My heart hammered against my ribs so loud I was sure they could hear it inside. I could hear muffled voices, laughter, talking. I couldn't quite make out the words, but one sound cut through a woman's voice, her voice. Confirmation hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath. My hand hovered inches from the peeling paint of the door. Should I knock, burst in demand answers, or just walk away? Every muscle tensed, caught between the desperate need for the awful truth and the paralyzing fear of what seeing it would actually do to me. The key was probably in my pocket, the one I'd found hidden in her jewelry box weeks ago just in case she ever lost hers. Did I dare use it? I stood there, frozen on the threshold. The muffled sounds from inside the room, the only thing breaking the suffocating silence. My whole future balanced on the next impossible choice. The muffled voices behind the door weren't loud, but they cut through the thudding in my ears. Was that Sarah's laugh? That specific, slightly breathless one she used to save just for me. Hearing it now in this filthy place felt like a violation. My mind raced, flipping through memories like a sick slideshow. That conference last fall she insisted was mandatory. The sudden team-building retreats that always seemed to fall on weekends. We'd vaguely planned something. Had it been going on for months, years? Each forgotten anniversary dinner, each time she seemed distracted when I tried to talk. It all took on a sinister new meaning. Was I just background noise in her real life? I thought about the kids. Thank God they were at my sister's for the weekend. How do you explain this? Mummy's not at the spa. Kids. She's 10 minutes away with Uncle Mark in a pay-by-the-hour motel. The sheer normalcy Mark had projected at our house, helping me flip burgers, asking about my work, now seemed like the coldest, most calculated performance. Was he mocking me the whole time? Did they laugh about me together? The humiliation burned hotter than the anger. For a second, this wasn't just about sex. It felt like they'd stolen my reality, my trust, piece by piece. And Sarah, what drove her here? Was it boredom? The thrill? Something missing I couldn't give? We had drifted short. Life gets busy, conversations get shallow, but I thought we were a team, facing the grind together. Had she tried to tell me she was unhappy, and I'd just missed it? Or was this purely her choice, her secret escape hatch from our marriage? The cheapness of the motel gnawed at me. It wasn't a love nest. It felt seedy, anonymous. Was that all our life together was worth? A quick, hidden transaction in a place like this? My fingers brushed the cold metal of the spare key in my pocket. That little piece of metal felt like a grenade pin. If I used it, I'd see it. The images my mind conjured were tortured, tangled sheets. Familiar touches meant for someone else. Proof. Irrefutable proof. But proof meant no going back. No more pretending, no more plausible deniability. It meant blowing up everything, our home, our friends, the future we'd sketched out. Was I ready for that nuclear winter? Yet turning away felt like surrender, like letting them win, like agreeing to live in the lie. The voices inside dipped lower, a murmur now. Were they arguing, planning, or just comfortable? I pressed my ear closer to the flimsy wood, straining to catch a word, any word that could tip the scales. My hand tightened around the key, slick with sweat. To see, or not to see. The agony wasn't just in the betrayal anymore. It was in the impossible, world-shattering choice looming right in front of me, with only that thin, cheap motel door standing between the life I knew and a terrifying unknown abyss. Every second stretched into an eternity. The cold metal of the spare key bit into my palm as I clenched my fist inside my pocket. Every muffled sound from behind that flimsy door felt amplified, distorted by the roaring in my ears. Was that a sigh, a murmur? Her voice? Definitely hers. Lower now, more intimate. Or was my mind just twisting every noise into the worst possible thing? The peeling paint on the door seemed to blur. This wasn't just about catching her. This was about confronting the ghost that had been haunting our marriage for who knows how long. The lies, the unexplained absences, the sudden distance that I'd chalked up to stress. I remembered finding that spare key weeks ago, tucked away in her rarely used jewelry box, hidden beneath a tangle of cheap costume necklaces. A little voice back then had whispered it was odd, but I'd silenced it. Just being practical, I'd told myself. Now holding it felt like holding a live wire. Using it meant crossing a line there was no coming back from. It meant seeing the truth, raw and undeniable. Could I handle that? The image of them together, the intimacy stolen from us. It threatened to buckle my knees right there in that grimy hallway. But turning away, walking back to my car, pretending I hadn't seen the location, hadn't heard her voice, that felt like suffocating. It meant living in a house built on quicksand, smiling at family dinners while knowing this rot festered beneath the surface. It meant letting Mark win, letting him think he'd gotten away with it. The humiliation flared again, hotter this time. His fake smile at the barbecue, his handshake. Had it all been a joke to them? Was our entire life just a stage for their secret? My breath came in shallow gasps. The voices inside shifted. A man's voice, deeper, unmistakably Mark's, that said something I couldn't catch. Then Sarah's voice again, sharper, almost strained. Was it an argument or something else? The uncertainty was its own kind of torture. My mind raced through possibilities. Were they fighting? Was she in trouble? Or was it just passion taking a different tone? Every scenario was worse than the last. Slowly, almost against my will, my hand slid out of my pocket. The spare key felt impossibly heavy, glinting dully under the flickering fluorescent light of the walkway. My fingers trembled violently as I raised it towards the lock. This tiny piece of metal held the power to detonate my entire world. The silence around me pressed in, thick and heavy, broken only by the frantic hammering of my own heart and those indistinct, taunting murmurs from room 112. The cold brass touched the lock. One turn. That's all it would take. One turn to shatter the lies, to end the torment of not knowing, but knowing. Knowing might destroy me completely. I closed my eyes for a second, the key poised, every muscle screamed. To unlock the door was to step into an abyss. To walk away was to condemn myself to a different kind of hell. The metal scraped faintly against the lock plate. I held my breath. This was it. The cold brass of the key scraped against the lock plate, a sound like fingernails on my soul. My hand trembled so violently I almost dropped it. One turn. Just one turn to end the agony of not knowing. The muffled voices inside seemed louder suddenly. Sarah's definitely tense and rapid now, and Mark's lower, insistent. It sounded less like passion, more like a heated discussion. A flicker of doubt warred with the crushing weight of betrayal. Was something else going on? But the location, the lies, the motel. What else could it be? Gritting my teeth, fueled by a surge of raw pain and a desperate need to end the torment, I shoved the key into the lock. It slid home with a final, metallic click that echoed in the silent hallway. My breath hitched. This was it. The point of no return. I twisted the key. The deadbolt slid back with a heavy, ominous thunk. My heart stopped. Every nerve screamed. I pushed the door open just a crack, enough to see a sliver of the dimly lit room beyond the cheap, heavy curtain covering the inside of the door. The voices became instantly clearer. ... Too far. Mark, I told you this was a terrible idea. Sarah's voice was sharp, strained, almost pleading. He's going to find out. It's not just about us anymore. Us, the word was a dagger. My vision blurred. Us, confirmation. But then, who was he? Me, or someone else? The despair deepened, a cold pit in my stomach. Mark's voice, tight with frustration, cut in. Calm down, Sarah. It's handled. He suspects nothing. We just need to stick to the plan, get the files, and this whole mess disappears. We're so close. Files, plan, mess. The words slammed into me, derailing my train of thought. This wasn't the desperate, secretive affair talk I'd braced myself for. This sounded different, colder, calculated. Before I could process it, a third voice spoke up from inside the room, a voice I didn't recognize at all. Mail.com, almost bored. The transfer needs to happen tonight. No more delays. Your marital problems, the voice said dismissively, are not my concern. Get the data, or the deal is off. And everyone feels the fallout, including your clueless husband. The world tilted. Marital problems, data deal, fallout. I pressed my eye closer to the crack. Past the edge of the curtain, I could see Sarah, her back partly to me, wringing her hands. Mark stood facing her, looking stressed, and partially visible, sitting in a worn armchair near the window, a man I'd never seen before. He was impeccably dressed, sipping from a paper Motel cup, looking utterly out of place in the dingy room. He radiated an unnerving calm. Betrayal still screamed in my veins, the location tracking proof undeniable, but the conversation, it shattered my simple narrative of infidelity. This wasn't just a hidden affair, it was something darker, something dangerous involving secrets, files, deals, and a stranger who spoke of fallout. The emotional devastation was suddenly layered with a chilling wave of fear. What had Sarah gotten involved in? What files? What deal? And what did this stranger mean by everyone feeling the fallout, including me? The key felt icy in my hand. Stepping inside now wasn't just confronting a cheating wife. It was potentially walking into a hornet's nest of secrets I didn't understand, with stakes far higher than just my shattered heart. The muffled voices discussing data transfer and tonight's deadline filled the crack in the doorway, each word deepening the terrifying mystery. My marriage was crumbling, but now, something far more sinister seemed to be lurking in the ruins. The stranger's words, everyone feels the fallout, including your clueless husband, froze the blood in my veins. This wasn't just betrayal, it was danger, pure, chilling danger. My hand, still on the key, went numb. Files, data transfer, deal. Sarah wasn't here for an affair. She was entangled in something criminal. The realization hit like a physical blow, momentarily eclipsing the heartbreak with raw fear. What had she done? Driven by a surge of protective instinct, I didn't. No, I still had. I shoved the door wide open. The cheap wood banged against the wall. 3 heads snapped towards me, Sarah's face draining of all color. Mark's eyes widening in pure panic, and the stranger, cool as ice, merely raising an eyebrow. John, Sarah gasped, pure terror in her voice, not guilt. What are you? Clueless. Husband, reporting for duty, I choked out, my voice thick with a mix of rage and fear. I stepped inside, my eyes locking onto the stranger. Who are you, and what the hell is this deal you're threatening my family with? Mark recovered first, stepping forward, his usual fake charm replaced by a sneer. John, this doesn't concern you. You shouldn't be here, Sarah. Handle your husband. He made a move towards a laptop open on the rickety table. Don't you touch that, Sarah yelled, surprising everyone, including me. She shoved Mark back, positioning herself between him and the table. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was fierce. It's over, Mark. He knows something's wrong now. Your plan's ruined. The stranger sighed, placing his paper cup down with deliberate slowness. Miss Davies, this is unfortunate. Mr. Davies, your wife and Mr. Henderson here. He gestured dismissively at Mark, were attempting to steal highly sensitive financial projections from our competitor, Synergy Corp, a deal worth millions to my clients, contingent on them delivering that data tonight. He looked at Sarah with cold contempt. Your wife got cold feet, started worrying about you finding out, about the legal consequences, sentimentality. It ruins everything. Relief ward with horror. She hadn't been cheating, not with Mark, anyway. But the truth was somehow worse. My wife, my Sarah, involved in corporate espionage. The betrayal wasn't of our vows, but of everything I thought she stood for. Sarah, is this true? The words felt like ash in my mouth. Tears streamed down her face. John, I was desperate. Mark pressured me for months, said it was the only way to save my job, get the promotion. He made it sound like a victimless crime. But then, I saw the names on the list. People who could lose everything, including people we know. I couldn't go through with the final transfer. I stalled. That's why we're here, in this dump, arguing. He brought him. She nodded at the stranger. To force me. Mark lunged for the laptop again. Shut up, Sarah. Just send the files. He grabbed her arm. Get off her, I roared, stepping forward. The room crackled with tension. The stranger watched, a vulture waiting for carnage. Then Sarah did something unexpected. With her free hand, she fumbled in her pocket and pulled out her phone. Not to call for help. She held it up, screen facing Mark and the stranger. It's too late, Mark, she said, her voice suddenly steady, eerily calm. The argument, the confession, about the theft, about him threatening John, recorded it all. Every word. For the last 5 minutes. It's already uploading to a cloud drive only I control. Mark froze, pure terror replacing his anger. The stranger's icy composure finally cracked. His eyes narrowed dangerously. You foolish woman, he hissed. The final twist suddenly blew, and red lights flashed through the thin curtains, painting the dingy room in strobes of color. Sirens wailed, rapidly approaching. Sarah looked at me, a flicker of defiance mixed with apology. I called the police anonymously 10 minutes ago. John told them there was a disturbance involving potential corporate theft at this motel. I knew they'd trace it fast. She looked back at the stranger. Your fallout, it's landing right on you. The banging on the motel door this time wasn't tentative, it was authoritative. Police, open up. The stranger's face went rigid. Mark crumpled, sinking onto the bed, muttering, no, no, no. Sarah just stood there, the phone still held up like a shield. The weight of her choices and the terrifying consequences crashing down around us all as the door burst open. The truth was out, but the real danger, the fallout from the stranger's world, had only just begun. The motel room exploded into chaos. Uniformed officers flooded in, their commands sharp and immediate. The stranger, whose name we later learned was Robert Vance, a corporate fixer with a long record, went rigid, his icy calm finally shattering into venomous fury directed at Sarah before he was swiftly cuffed. Mark just crumpled, sobbing incoherently as they read him his rights. The laptop, the damning evidence of their intended theft from Synergy Corp, was bagged and tagged. Sarah handed her phone to the lead detective without hesitation, her recording a crystal-clear confession. I'll cooperate fully, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. She looked at me then, really looked at me, her eyes filled with a terrible mix of shame, fear, and a desperate hope I wasn't ready to meet. John, I am so sorry for everything. The lies, the risk I put us in. It wasn't about us, but it destroyed us anyway. The relief that it wasn't an affair was instantly drowned by the tidal wave of betrayal that she'd been involved in something so dangerous, so criminal, right under my nose. The trust was obliterated. The fallout was brutal. Vance and Mark faced serious charges for conspiracy, attempted corporate espionage, and extortion. Sarah, cooperating fully, avoided prison but received probation, community service, and lost her job and professional license. The scandal was public, humiliating. Friends retreated. The life we knew imploded. We separated. The kids stayed with my sister longer while we navigated the wreckage. The rage was immense at her stupidity, her vulnerability to Mark's pressure, the sheer risk she took with our family's safety and future. Yet tangled with the anger was a horrible unwanted strand of ... understanding, not condoning, never. But seeing her genuine terror in that motel room, her desperate attempt to stop it when she realized the real cost, and her final, brave act to blow it all up, it complicated the pure hatred. Months later, we started talking, painfully, awkwardly, therapy, individually, and then, tentatively, together. It wasn't about forgiveness yet. It was about untangling the mess. Why did she feel so trapped by Mark? Why didn't she come to me? The answers were messy. Fear, misplaced, ambition, feeling inadequate. We're picking through the rubble, brick by painful brick. The love we had is buried deep, scarred and changed. Rebuilding trust after such a profound betrayal, not of the heart, but of our very safety and ethics, feels like climbing a mountain in the dark. We're trying, it's slow. Some days the anger wins. Some days I see the broken woman she became because of her terrible choices, and a sliver of something else creeps in. We're not the same people who stood in that motel room doorway. The future is uncertain, fragile. But for the sake of the life we once cherished, and the flicker of remorse and courage she showed at the end, we're taking the first step on a long, hard road back from the brink. The journey through betrayal's aftermath had begun.